Hey everybody, let's get started with chapter 3. This is migration. We'll start with key issue 1. Remember, as geographers, you want to think about where to where, but more importantly, why. Why are people moving? Remember, economic opportunities, number 1, jobs, jobs, jobs. Cultural freedom is number 2 reason people move, and third is environmental comfort. Remember, cultural freedom is usually meaning freedom from persecution, genocide, civil war, persecution against your religion, your language, whatever it might be. People are moving culturally, but number one reason is always going to be jobs. People are looking for an opportunity to better their lives. The global migration patterns look like this. Basically, Asia, Latin America, and Africa have net out migration. Remember, that means more people are leaving the country than are moving in when you do the math. Typically, we see people moving from LDCs to MDCs, right? Poorer countries looking for better opportunities than the rich countries. The Middle East has the most immigrants. There are the percentages. The question is why? Again, going back to that number one reason, what are they going there for? They're looking for jobs, construction jobs, oil jobs. Those economies are doing well because of the oil industry, and they have plenty of opportunities for construction and oil. Remember, we can compare the migration transition to the demographic transition. Obviously, in stage 1, people aren't in that anymore because we're not searching for food as much. So we move on to stage 2, and that's when you have a high natural increase rate. And so you're going to see a high international emigration. Remember, that's exiting the country because of overpopulation. You'll see interregional migration from rural to the urban areas. Remember, interregional is staying within the country, but changing regions. So you're moving from the farms into those urban areas looking for jobs, healthcare, education. In stage 3 countries, obviously the NIR is coming down. So you're going to see some high international immigration. As their economies improve, people are coming into those countries looking for jobs. And some intra-regional migration from cities to the suburbs. That's only in small percentages. That's going to be much higher in stage 4. That's us, where we have a much higher intra-regional migration out of the cities and into the suburbs and countryside, which we'll get into later. Remember, we have different types of international migration. Obviously, it's voluntary if you're looking for jobs, forced if you're leaving your home because of persecution of some sort, civil war and whatnot. Internal migration, as I just talked about, interregional is when you leave a region for another region. You leave Boston and move to San Francisco. You leave St. George and come to Salt Lake. Intra-regional is when you are leaving the city for the suburbs or vice versa. You're staying close by. The example I always gave is if you keep the same job, you're probably intra-regional. If you change jobs, you're probably interregional because it's a much longer move. There's where most of the immigrants in the United States are coming to. Really no surprises in the South and East Coast. This is what it's looked like over several generations. You can see where people are coming from has dramatically changed. Those waves early on were from Europe in particular, Ireland and Germany in the late 1800s. Now we're seeing a much different wave from Latin America, not so much Europe anymore. There's no reason to come here. Remember, they're an MDC. Very few people leave MDCs. Remember, I kept showing you this. That's Williston, North Dakota. During the oil boom, the fracking boom up in North Dakota. Again, what is the number one reason people move? As I talked about before, counter-urbanization is an intra-regional move. Twice as many people move out of the cities compared to migrating in. People typically do not come into those cities anymore. It's slightly changing, but not so much anymore. Remember, they're pulled out to those suburbs by certain things, lifestyle, better technology. They can live farther from home, right? We can commute farther. Work at home as you're doing now. Children are grown and gone. Obviously, these are empty nesters. They don't have a reason to stay in there any longer. Higher income. Obviously, if you can afford to live in the suburbs, it's much more expensive. Retirement, and these are older folks as well. Better schools, we talked about that. People are moving out into the suburbs because the schools are better. It's cleaner, there's less pollution, it's safer. The transportation, we talked about the interstate highway system, pushing people out into the suburbs because like now the highways are much more accessible. We're seeing this mostly, and we're seeing people move even further away in rural counties, Colorado, Idaho, Utah, Wyoming, to Heber City. People are moving out into Heber and so forth. They live farther away. And we typically see this in stage 4 countries. Again, why? Because they can afford it. It's much more expensive to live farther away. You need transportation. You need to own a car, if not several cars. Maintenance of a car, the suburbs, taxes are typically a little bit higher. So it's more expensive, and that's why you're going to see it more in stage 4 countries. All right, let's end it there.